Hey guys, and welcome to Comfy Cozy Up. So I'm gonna be doing my February wrap up. Yes, March. Looking forward to it. Yes, we're going to warmer weather. But anyway, I did a TBR. So if you watch my TBR, I talked about 7 books I wanted to read, and I read all 7 books. I could have read more, but I focused a few days on some writing. So I'm really happy about that. I had a great February. But I'm gonna talk about the books. Now, I reviewed 5 of the books on the list and 2 I didn't, but I'm going to just talk briefly about the ones I did review and leave the link so you can go check it out. Especially one of them, I really want you guys to go watch the video because I was able to talk more about how I felt about the writing. So let's start with the first one. So this is Black of the Berry and Wallace Thurman. And what I'm going to say about this is it is a book that is published back in 1929, and it does talk about colorism and this idea of being your own worst enemy, of things that was done to you and you end up believing it subconsciously, not realizing it, and how it can impact your life a lot. So it dealt with a young woman who come from this town, and this town is predominantly white, but she also have a black community, and the black community is mostly of mulattoes. So she is the dark skin that didn't quite fit in any of the community, and she wanted to go off to basically be amongst people who are reflection of her. But she brought along the things that was said to her, all those negative things she carried with her as she go along to these different areas of her life, school and New York. And you see the kind of treatment she allowed herself to deal with because of that. And but it's just so much things that I liked about this, and it's so much things that is pretty sad when you think about that the time period this was written in and how much it does still happen. So, but yeah, it is a classic that I think I really like. Also, it ties into the writing style, which was very interesting, and I really liked. But I'm going to continue with the Harlem Renaissance books, and yeah. Now the next book is definitely a video I want you guys to watch, and it is James Baldwin, Go Tell on the Mountain. I really love this book. I love the writing style. I love how he's able to write about something that is very sensitive, but did it in a way that is thought-provoking. It talks about religion in a way of survival, but also religion in a way of not taking responsibility for your action in the name of religion. But there's so much things that goes on in this, and I definitely want you to check out the review I did. I'm gonna link it below, and yeah. The first romance, well, the only romance is Annabelle and Lee, and it is a book that's written by Danielle Allen, which was inspired by Edgar Allan Poe. And I love that she does tap into his work every so often and create her own version of a story or a poetry line. In this case, it was poetry. I did like it. I do find that it talks about things in a way where she always actually her storylines where it's more than what you think. And in this case, it's that one love that may have broke your heart, and how that one love can mold your future, and somehow sometimes you just never get over it quite, or it linger on, and what if you had a second chance kind of deal. What would you do with it? And I loved it. It was romantic, it was sweet, it had some juicy moments, but at the same time, it's just one of those really relaxing kind of romance that make you smile. So I'm here for it. Then the next book I want to talk about is The Last Thing You Surrender, and this is a book that was picked by Dee Dee from Brown Girl Reading for her Read So Lit book, and she does it every year. And this was a book. This is my first 5-star book. It is definitely a book that will catch you from the get-go. It is a historical fiction, and it touched on a time period that was very difficult. So we're talking World War II, we're talking Jim Crow era, and we're following 3 characters. You're following a white guy who's in the military, a black guy who has to decide his faith of where the military is where he belongs. And then you also have a black woman who is struggling with grief, and also the complicated friendship and what came along with it. It is a rough book in terms of that time period. So there are some languages that is constantly, word is constantly talked about in this. There are some brutal moments that it's hard to read. There are some moments that might get you frustrated and angry like I did. But for the most part, I would say you get through it. You get through those rough moments because of how he writes the story. I believe his writing was just unbelievable, and he was able to craft this. I didn't talk about in a review where one thing I didn't talk about is the fact that military writing was done in this. There's several scenes of a character in the military and things that were happening, and I've read books before where they have military parts and I was just bored to death. But this book didn't do that. It's so much quotable moments in that scene, part in the book where he's talking about things that were happening to him while he was in combat and surviving. And there's this one particular quote that up to this day, and I read this like probably about 2 weeks now, that quote still stick with me. I love how it was discussed and talked about, and it just showed things that you don't think about as far as people and faith, and having faith and this belief in God, and yet still you're in the military, protecting your country, doing things that are just brutal, and struggling with that. It really talked about some really important things in here. Loved it. Definitely think you should read it. You should definitely check out Dee Dee's live chat, where she's going to talk more about this book. And yeah, I'm here for it. The next book is Benty Home. Now, this is a sci-fi that I read the first one, and it took me a while to pick this one up. But I love this because it gives me some clarity of her gift, why things were able to happen, her purpose, her family connection. It was just a well-rounded book, I think, of tying you into the story and getting you prepared for the last book, which is supposed to be the ultimate, like, revelation of things to happen. So I was really impressed with this. The next book I read was the only memoir on here, and I approached this book with this idea that it was going to crush me because of all the comments I've seen and people's expression about the book, and that was Heavy by Keith Lamont. It didn't do that for me. I think because I was so prepared for it, I was just not like, I was sad. Definitely was sad. There were really some sad moments. But what I really thought about this book that stayed with me is that idea of a black man having an eating disorder, and why the eating disorder was an issue and why it started in the first place. That part of the story was different for me. It's not something you hear, or even, someone would actually come out and talk about it. And it was done in this book where you see why, there's like, when people have these issues and these psychological problem, or things that going on with addiction, or things like that, you kind of never really, it's not about the addiction. It's not about, in this case, it's not about the food, it's not about the weight, it's the things that trigger it, the things behind the scene. And you get to hear his thoughts and where his mind was at the moment, and why he was doing the things that he was doing, and also how he was, struggling being academic, and how using certain things to survive all the things that he was dealing with, and that precious relationship with your mother, and how if it's not great, how that can really affect you throughout your life and adulting, and that love that you want and how you want it, plays a really important part in the story that he tells about his life. It's definitely a book I highly recommend. It's definitely one of those memoirs that you definitely will remember and reflect on in other ways. But it definitely, it's heavy. It is heavy. But like I said, I was somewhat prepared, so I think the blow didn't, I didn't get the blow like I, if I didn't know much about this, I probably would have been a little bit more like, yeah, but it was just more like, sad, but yeah. And the last book I read was a YA, and that is Musical Youth. And this is a book that is set in Antigua. And I started reading this thinking, yeah, maybe I really can't do this YA. Because there's some YA I just can't get with because it is YA. I'm not a target audience for it. So there's certain things that happen where you're just like rolling your eyes. So when I just started reading this, I was like, okay, I'm not sure about this one. But as it went on, it started getting really interesting, and I started seeing why it won award, why it was a lot of people have read it, especially Caribbean people. And it's a story about two characters, and you have a female who's a gifted guitarist, and you have a male character who's talented in many different ways. He's very artistic as well, and they connected. There's that chemistry, there's that puppy love, all that, but they didn't know much about each other. They didn't know each other's family history, all these other things, but they do have something common where their grandparents raised them. And they're very strict. One is very strict, the other one is more of he's like that grandpa that just gives you all these crazy story and these wisdom, but he's very much supportive. But what I did like is when they're talking about the musical journey, they dig into some really nice classics, some really nice music that I'm very familiar with in the Caribbean. But it also touched on the serious matter of, which does happen a lot in the Caribbean, where there's that colorism thing, that where you target a person based on their color. In this case, the male character, they call him Shaka or Zulu, and based on the South African warrior, and who has this very much dark chocolate complexion. So you get the impression that's what his skin looked like, and that the kids were saying things to tease him, but he grew into that love for that name because of what it represents. And a lot of times, if you can know your history and know your African roots in terms of in a cultural way, you can find good things to cling on to, and that part wasn't really nice. It made me smile. I did like the family secrets that were revealed in this. That definitely surprised the heck out of me. I did like the musical production that they were doing, so you get to really see how they're exploring their talent. It definitely is a YA that made me smile and made me, get a little nostalgic and think about your childhood, and, when you used to do production stuff. I was more into dancing, but not the singing part. But when you used to put on school shows and all that, and it was fun. So I love this. I thought it was a really sweet done, well done YA, and I definitely recommend it. You can see me still smiling. That's how much I like the book. So yeah. I'm here for this one. And that's it. That's my 7th book, and I'm really proud that I was able to read all of these. And my first fully TBR that I've completed in a while. A lot of times I would have TBRs. I would do most of the books, but there's always 1 or 2 books that I never finish, but I finished. So I was really proud of that. So what I want to know is, if you've read any of these, how you like it. Also, what was your favorite book that you've read in February? And if you did participate in any of the Black History things, as far as selecting a book that was Black History related, did you like the book, and what was it that kind of, have a little conversation in the comment section. So yeah, and I'm gonna link all these videos that I did a review on, especially Go Tell on the Mountain, because I really want you guys to watch that review. And yeah, so thanks for watching, guys, and have a good day.